All right, diving right in today.
Okay.
We're tackling a book I know a lot of you have been asking about.
Yeah.
No Drama, Discipline.
It's a good one.
Seems like so many parents are, struggling with finding more effective
Right.
and respectful ways to deal with behavior
Absolutely.
and getting away from, just the yelling and the consequences that don't always seem to work.
Yeah.
So we're really going to try to unpack
Yep.
the main ideas here and hopefully give you some tools to put into practice.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things that's so clear from the messages we've been getting
Mm-hmm.
and that the book really highlights well is that sense of just being stuck.
Yeah.
So many parents feel like they're constantly reacting
Right.
instead of responding in those really tricky moments.
Yeah.
And, they want to discipline with kindness, with understanding.
Right.
But life is busy.
Yeah.
There's work, there's chores, there are activities.
Yeah, all the things. All the things.
And it's like your brain is just fried by the time you
Yeah.
get to that moment
Exactly.
where you need to actually parent.
Yeah.
So the book talks about breaking free of this reactive discipline cycle.
Mm-hmm.
You know that thing where
I know well.
your kid acts up and then you react and then they react to your reaction.
Yeah, and it just escalates from there.
And it's like, where does it end?
And you're not teaching anything.
No.
You're just reacting.
Right. And usually our go-to reaction is
Right.
consequences of some sort.
Punishments, yeah.
Yeah.
Timeouts, yelling,
Yeah.
all of those things.
But, the book really encourages a shift from that to a more intentional way of thinking about discipline,
Right.
putting connection and teaching first rather than
Right.
punishment.
Okay. So how do we actually do that? What does that look like?
Well, they actually start off the book
Okay.
by sharing just a bunch of different really relatable statements that parents have said.
Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like I'm just reacting all the time instead of parenting from my values.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of gets you thinking about whether those things resonate with you,
Right.
whether that's something you're struggling with.
Yeah, I think we all have those moments, right? Where you feel like you're just not in control.
Oh, absolutely.
You're not parenting the way you want to be.
Yeah, and the book acknowledges that sometimes, those quick reactions,
Sure.
they work in the moment,
Right.
like they stop the behavior.
Huh.
But then it kind of challenges us to think,
Look,
are fear and punishment really
Yeah.
what we want to be motivating our kids with
yeah, that's a good question.
in the long run?
Because, they might do what you want in that moment because
Okay.
they're scared,
Right.
but are they really learning the lessons?
Right, and what are we teaching them about how to handle their own emotions or how to navigate the world? If it's just like, do this because I said so, or else.
Right. And that could be a tough cycle to break, right? Because it could be effective in the short term,
Sure.
but long term, you're not really giving them the skills they need
Yeah,
to regulate their own behavior,
exactly.
to make good choices.
And they offer this why, what, and how framework to help us.
Okay, I like that.
So when your kid is doing something
Yeah.
that's pushing your buttons,
Mm-hmm.
instead of immediately jumping to
Yeah.
what the consequence is going to be, you take a breath
Right.
and you ask yourself, why is my child doing this?
Okay, so get curious about the why.
Yes.
And
Just
just-
like, what's the underlying need
Oh, yeah,
or
yeah.
feeling
Oh, God.
that's driving this behavior?
Yeah, I think that could be really tough in the moment
Right.
because you're just like, stop it.
Right.
But taking a breath
Yeah.
and trying to understand
But-
what's going on underneath.
Exactly. And then the what lesson do I want to teach in this moment?
Okay,
So it's not just about
right.
stopping the behavior.
It's about the bigger picture.
Right.
What are you actually trying to teach them?
Yes, what skill or value do I want to help them develop?
I like that.
And then the how. How can I best teach this lesson?
Okay, so thinking about
Yeah.
how to actually get through to them
Yes.
in a way that they can hear and understand.
And this is where that idea of connection comes in.
Right.
So let's say you've got a 4-year-old
Mm-hmm.
who decides to slap you while you're,
Oh.
trying to answer emails.
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
Right. So instead of immediately reacting,
Right.
getting mad or whatever,
Yeah.
you think, okay, why might they have done that?
Yeah.
Maybe they want attention.
They want you to play.
Right. Maybe they're frustrated.
Or they're bored.
Yeah, that you're not engaging with them.
Exactly. And then what do you want to teach them in that moment?
Right.
Not just don't hit, but
Yeah.
maybe how do we ask for attention?
Exactly.
How do we handle these big feelings
Right.
in a way that doesn't hurt other people?
Yeah, so how do you do that?
Right.
Well, you get down on their level, you acknowledge the feeling.
Right.
Hey, it's hard to wait. I know you want to play,
Yeah.
but hitting hurts and it's not okay. and then give them an alternative.
Right. Give them something else they can do.
You can use your words. You can tap my arm.
You can go draw a picture.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Exactly. And it's not just for little kids. They talk about, think about the homework battles.
Oh, yeah.
With a 9-year-old.
Homework battles, classic.
Right. Your instinct might be to...
Why didn't you do your homework?
Right. Or you need to manage your time better.
You're going to be in trouble.
But if you think about the why...
Okay.
Maybe they're actually struggling with the material.
Yeah, maybe it's hard for them.
Or they're feeling overwhelmed.
Or they have too much going on.
Right. So then the lesson becomes not just about getting the homework done, but maybe about learning how to break down tasks.
Yeah, or ask for help.
Right. Or advocate for themselves if they need extra time.
Exactly.
And then the how becomes less of a lecture and more about maybe sitting with them.
Helping them. Yeah.
Helping them make a plan. Teaching them a skill, not just demanding that they do it.
Because that doesn't always work.
It doesn't.
No, and I think sometimes we forget that kids are still learning,
Yeah.
They're not always capable of doing what we expect of them.
They talk about this difference between can't and won't.
Oh, that's so important.
Right, and how sometimes what we see as, blatant defiance might actually be that they just don't have the capacity.
Yeah, they're not quite there yet.
In that moment.
Developmentally. Or they're tired.
Right.
Or they're hungry.
Yeah, or they're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
The book had this example of this 5-year-old who, one day can handle, a disappointment. Yeah, no problem. Right. And then the next day loses it.
I wanted the blue cup.
Right.
Meltdown city.
It's not that they're choosing to be difficult. It's that...
Right, they just don't have the skills yet.
Their ability to regulate those emotions is just not consistent.
Yeah, and I think that's where we as parents can get frustrated.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're like, well, yesterday you were fine.
Right, so why are you acting like this today?
Exactly, and that's where the book really encourages us to be flexible.
Right.
To understand that their capacity changes from day to day.
Absolutely.
And to adjust our expectations accordingly.
Okay, so let's talk about a couple of discipline tactics that the book really questions.
Sorry.
Starting with spanking.
Okay.
They have a very firm stance against it.
Yeah, they do.
And they back it up with a lot of research from neuroscience and child development.
I mean, we all know that feeling of frustration when your kid's pushing your buttons.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it leads to, wanting to spank.
Right.
But what they argue is that it's just not effective in the long run.
And it can actually be really harmful to the relationship.
To the connection.
Because instead of the child thinking about, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Right.
They're just focused on...
Mommy's mad.
Yeah, that hurt.
That was unfair.
Right. So it kind of defeats the purpose.
Exactly. It shifts the focus away from their own actions and onto the parent's reaction.
And research shows that, spanking can actually teach kids that it's okay to use force to solve problems.
And there's also, the brain development piece.
Right.
Which they talk about.
And how it can have a negative impact on...
Yeah, on those developing brains.
So something to really think about.
For sure.
They also talk about timeouts. And I know a lot of parents,
right,
who have moved away from spanking feel like, okay, timeout is a better alternative.
Right. It's not physical.
Yeah.
It's just a little space.
But they raise some good questions about whether that's always the most effective approach.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that.
They point out that timeouts are often used when the parent is angry. So you're not really creating a space for calm learning.
Yeah.
And for the child, it's often experienced as isolation.
Right.
Which can feel like rejection.
Especially for little kids who really need that connection.
Especially when they're already feeling overwhelmed.
Exactly.
So, we've talked about some of these specific tactics.
Right.
But it all comes back to really developing your own personal philosophy around discipline.
So being intentional.
Right. Moving away from those knee-jerk reactions to something more thoughtful.
More in line with your values.
Exactly.
As a parent.
And the book really encourages you to ask yourself some questions.
Okay.
Like, do you even have a philosophy?
Like, have you thought about it?
Right. Are you just winging it?
Right.
Is what you're doing actually working?
Yeah.
Are you seeing a decrease in the behaviors?
Because if it's not working, why keep doing it?
Right. And how do you feel about the way you're handling discipline?
Yeah. Does it feel good?
Do you feel good about it?
Yeah.
Does your kid feel loved?
Respected.
And respected, even when
they're messing up.
Right, addressing their behavior.
It's a lot to think about for sure.
It is. And they also ask, does your approach create space for genuine apologies?
Oh, that's a good one.
And for taking responsibility.
For both the parent and the child.
Yes.
Taking ownership.
Yeah.
For your part in it.
And these questions might be a little uncomfortable. You might realize that what you're doing isn't really lining up.
Right, with your values. Or with what you want for your kid.
But the book is really hopeful.
Okay.
It says it's never too late.
To learn and grow.
To make changes.
Yeah, and I think that's really empowering, right?
Absolutely.
That we're not stuck.
Okay, so the book also dives into some of the brain science behind this.
Okay, I'm interested.
They talk about these 3 brain C's.
3 C's. All right.
The first one is the changing brain.
Okay.
So, reminder, your kid's brain is still developing.
Still under construction.
Yes, especially in those early years.
Right.
So patience and age-appropriate expectations aren't just nice, they're actually
science.
They're based in science, yeah.
Yeah.
The second C is the changeable brain.
Okay.
Or neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity, big word.
Yeah.
But important.
This is that incredible ability of the brain to rewire itself.
Right. Based on our experience.
Based on our experiences.
Well, how we interact with our kids.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to discipline.
Really matter.
It really shapes their brains.
It's shaping the brains.
Yeah, for better or for worse.
And every time you respond with that calm connection, you're actually helping to...
Literally building pathways.
Those neural pathways.
Well, self-regulation.
For self-regulation.
That's amazing.
It's incredible, right?
Yeah.
And they have some really cool examples in the book, like how learning a new language can actually change the structure of the brain.
Really?
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
It is wild.
So just think about how powerful our interactions are.
Right. Because on the flip side, they also talk about how early adversity can have negative impacts.
Right. So it's not just the positive stuff.
Both.
The negative stuff also has an impact.
Yeah. It's really about those repeated experiences that shape those neural connections.
And that's where that saying, neurons that fire together, wire together.
I've heard that.
Comes in.
Right.
So if you're constantly react in a harsh way, you're strengthening those pathways.
Right. For those negative reactions.
But if you're consistently responding with connection and understanding...
For building those positive pathways.
You're building those positive pathways.
Awesome.
The third C is the complex brain.
Okay.
And this is where they talk about the different parts of the brain.
Right, because it's not just one big blob.
It's not just one big blob, no.
Lots of different parts.
And they use this helpful analogy of the downstairs brain and the upstairs brain.
Okay, I like that.
So downstairs brain is more
reactive.
Yeah.
Instinctual, fight or flight, survival mode.
Upstairs brain
is more thoughtful.
Yeah, the reasoning.
Planning, making good choices.
The good choices.
Right.
And discipline can either trigger that reactive downstairs brain.
Through threats.
Yeah, through fear.
Like, you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
I'm going to get you.
They call it poking the lizard.
Poking the lizard, I like that.
Or it can help engage that more thoughtful upstairs brain.
Which is where we want to be.
Right, because that's where those skills like self-control and empathy
and understanding consequences
really develop. So we want to connect in a way that helps our kids access and strengthen
that upstairs brain.
That upstairs brain.
Instead of poking the lizard.
Exactly.
Right.
And that brings us to one of the central pieces of no drama discipline, which is connection.
Yeah, it's all about connection.
It's all about connection.
For correction.
They really emphasize that your first response to misbehavior or distress
should be to connect.
Not
to punish. That's to lecture.
To soothe them.
Yeah, calm them down.
Before you even try to correct the behavior.
It's like connect to correct. I like that.
Right.
So when a child's upset, their upstairs brain is offline.
Right, they're in that.
They can't think straight.
Lizard brain.
Yeah, lizard brain.
So connection helps.
To bring them back.
To
a place where they can learn.
Exactly.
I like that.
And they have this great visual in the book, the river of well-being.
Right.
So imagine a river, and on one bank, you've got the chaos.
The meltdowns, the tantrums.
All of that.
Yeah.
And on the other bank, you've got this rigidity.
Strict rules, no emotions allowed.
Right.
Yeah, like a robot.
And well-being is flowing in the middle.
In the calm water.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when kids act out, they've drifted too far.
To one side or the other.
To one side or the other.
Oh.
And connection is what brings them back.
Back to that center.
To that center.
Got it.
And they talk about reframing tantrums.
Okay.
Because our instinct is often to see them as...
Like a manipulation?
Yeah, or something to just be endured.
Right.
But they suggest that we see tantrums as
okay.
a way that our kids are communicating.
Like a signal.
That they're overwhelmed.
That they need help.
Yeah, they need help to reconnect.
Oh, that's interesting.
And empathy is really important here.
Yeah, because if you go into it thinking, ugh, here we go again.
You're right.
My kid's trying to manipulate me.
It's going to be a lot harder to connect.
Yeah.
And while it might be tempting to just ignore a tantrum, the book actually suggests that we can use those moments as opportunities to help them calm down.
To regulate.
To regulate.
Okay.
And they even say that over-talking during a tantrum can actually be counterproductive.
Yeah. Sometimes just being present is enough.
Sometimes just being there.
And offering comfort.
Is all they need.
That's good to know.
But it's really important to clarify. Connection doesn't mean...
do whatever you want.
Letting your kids do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Boundaries are still important.
Absolutely.
Routines, high expectations.
Those are all good things.
They're still crucial.
For
development and for a sense of security.
Okay, so it's like finding that balance.
Right. It's that balance of connection and boundaries.
Yeah.
I know a lot of parents might be thinking,
yeah,
okay, all this connecting, where do I find the time?
Right. Who has the time for all that?
And they actually address that in the book.
Okay.
They say, look, yeah, it might take a little more time up front.
Right.
But in the long run, it's going to actually save you time.
Because they're learning those skills.
They're learning those skills.
Right, like self-control.
Right, they're building that foundation.
They don't need you to react all the time.
Exactly.
So you're building them up.
It's an investment.
It is. It's a long-term investment.
And it brings us to this important distinction they make.
Okay.
Between spoiling and connection.
Oh, interesting.
Because sometimes parents worry that if they're really attuned to their kids' needs, that they're going to spoil them.
I don't want to spoil my kid. So what's the difference?
They define spoiling as damaging a child's character by overindulging them.
Giving them everything they want.
Right, or giving them this sense that the world revolves around them.
You're so special.
Yeah.
You deserve everything.
And it can actually prevent them
from developing resilience.
From learning how to cope.
Yeah, because they don't face any challenges.
With disappointment or frustration.
Exactly. And I think it's easy to confuse indulgence with love.
Yes.
You know, I'm giving you all these things because I love you.
But that's not really what kids need.
No, it's not.
What they need is...
love, connection.
That love, that connection.
Attention.
Attention.
That's the good stuff.
And those small moments of connection, even when they're not having a meltdown.
Just acknowledging their feelings.
Yeah, showing.
Like, hey, that's a cool drawing.
Right, exactly.
Tell me about it.
Those are so important.
Yeah, it builds that foundation.
And it kind of sets the stage for when you do need to redirect.
Yeah.
So they talk about this idea of response flexibility.
Response flexibility, okay.
So instead of just having the same automatic response every time.
Like a robot.
You're really being mindful about what your kid needs.
In that moment.
In that moment.
For being present.
Yeah.
Paying attention.
And they have 3 no-drama connection principles.
Right. What are those?
That help with this.
Okay.
The first one is turn down the shark music.
Turn down the shark music. What does that mean?
I know. It's a great analogy, right?
Yeah, a good one.
So the shark music is like all that stuff going on in your head.
Oh, okay.
You know, the fears.
The worries, the anxiety, judgments. Oh my gosh, are my kids doing this again?
Right. And it's taking you out of the present moment.
Yeah, yeah. You're not really seeing your kid.
And they give this example of like watching the same scene, but with different background music.
Oh, interesting.
Right. Like if you watch a nature scene with like calm, peaceful music versus like scary, intense music.
It changes the whole mood.
It changes how you perceive what you're watching.
So it's about being aware of our own internal state.
Yes, and turning down that noise.
That's shark music.
So you can respond from a calmer place.
Exactly.
The second principle is chase the why.
Chase the why, okay.
So instead of immediately jumping to how could you, you get curious.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
What's driving this behavior?
So trying to understand their perspective.
Yes.
Even if you don't agree with it.
Even if the behavior itself is not okay.
Okay.
So they have this example of a kid who got into the toilet paper and the lipstick.
Uh-oh.
Right. And instead of just getting angry, you think, okay, why might they have done that?
Right. Maybe they're not trying to be bad.
Maybe they were exploring textures.
Yeah, being creative.
Or colors.
Yeah. It doesn't excuse the behavior.
Right.
But it helps you respond.
In a way that teaches them.
In a more effective way.
Yeah, without shutting them down.
And even with those tougher behaviors.
Okay.
Like anger, aggression, you still want to chase the why.
Yeah.
Because if you just focus on stopping the behavior,
right,
you're not addressing what's causing it.
The root of the problem.
And showing that curiosity actually builds trust with your kid.
Right, because they feel hurt.
You feel like you're on their side.
Yeah, you're trying to understand.
The third principle is pay attention to how you communicate.
Okay.
And this is a good reminder that